So, something that goes against the usual positive message I always like to share about traveling Japan, but this is the time I saw a trip to Tokyo absolutely ruin a relationship, and there are two reasons why this breakup happened, I think, so it could be a good cautionary tale if you are planning a trip to Japan. So I'm living in Tokyo, and an acquaintance and her boyfriend are coming for a trip, so I agreed to show them around a couple times and help them with any questions they have. They were dating for about a year, and every problem they seemed to have on their trip seemed like the smallest issues to me, but they were exacerbated by being in a high-risk, high-reward scenario, like a Tokyo trip. What I mean is high reward like making once-in-a-lifetime memories in what I think is one of the most romantic cities in the world, and high risk meaning what would usually be a small mistake back home, like the boyfriend leading them to get on the wrong bus, resulting in greater consequences like missing said once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, getting lost in an unfamiliar country where you don't speak the language, and requiring an expensive taxi ride to rectify the mistake. And that's exactly what seemed to happen. What would have been the smallest arguments back home blew up because the consequences were much greater during a travel scenario, and they ended up breaking up a week into their trip. I know this because I was getting message updates from both of them, and eventually both of them separately asked me if they could come stay in my apartment because they didn't want to be in the same hotel room with each other anymore. And the smallest issues, like that bus mistake I mentioned, once the boyfriend wanted to go out and experience Shinjuku nightlife when the girlfriend wanted to stay in the hotel and get over jet lag, and an argument over which restaurant to make reservations at or something. Again, what would have been nothing arguments back home, but they turned into a "you are ruining my Tokyo trip" kind of argument. Anyway, I did what I could to help, but it was kind of outside of my sphere of influence, as you can imagine, and they ended up flying home, sitting next to each other, broken up, again with what I assume was a wild, awkward plane ride. And usually 8 out of 10 times I've seen a Tokyo trip be the most romantic, relationship boosting experience you can imagine. So this is where those two lessons come in that I mentioned before. First is just communicating expectations. It seemed on their worst night, the boyfriend was expecting like a wild night out on the city, and the girlfriend was expecting like something more intimate and personal, and it sounded like they had one of the coolest nights of nightlife in Shinjuku, but the girlfriend's expectations were not met, so I guess they argued, and the boyfriend couldn't understand why, because he thought it was a lot of fun. So them two just communicating that beforehand surely would have fixed that instead of messaging me about it afterwards. And the second one's really simple. You all probably know this beforehand, but just plan, even more so if you travel with someone else, ironically, than if you solo travel. Like just researching some restaurant reviews or bus schedules beforehand probably would have fixed a couple of their issues. Anyway, probably common sense to a lot of you, but I'd hate to see what would otherwise be a wonderful trip messed up by small things, you know? So travel safe and let me know what you think, yeah?